Hello there, everybody. Concrete farmer Mike Graham received a quite extraordinary call from a woman called Helen from Nottingham. She wanted to offer her opinion on the refugee crisis. The reason this call is so extraordinary is because it takes us all the way back to Canada in 1970. The FLQ were a Quebec separatist group which carried out various terrorist attacks from 1963 to 1970. Most notably, the bombing of the Montreal Stock Exchange in 1969 and the kidnapping and murder of Quebec Deputy Premier Pierre Laporte, which led to the events known historically as the October Crisis. And that culminated in Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau invoking the War Measures Act. This gave the police more powers to arrest and detain suspected members of the FLQ. It was the first and only domestic use of the Canadian War Measures Act and was later repealed by the Emergencies Act, which you may be more familiar with, as that act was the one used by Justin Trudeau during the Canadian convoy protest in early 2022. Now, you may be sat here listening to me right now thinking, what on earth does this have to do with Britain in 2023? Well, I was thinking exactly the same thing during this phone call from Helen from Nottingham. It's a truly bewildering comparison, but let's take a look.
But first, let's talk to Helen, who's in Nottingham. Hello, Helen.
Good morning.
Good morning. What can I do for you?
This is my first call.
Well, thank you.
Because I've listened and I've watched proceedings. I did live in Canada for many years.
Yes.
And on October the 16th, 1970, Pierre Trudeau, who was the father of the present Prime Minister, brought in the War Measures Act. And the War Measures Act was a statute of the Parliament of Canada that provided for the declaration of war against invasion, war, and we were getting bombed by the FLQ, who Quebec was trying to
the separatists,
take over Canada.
Right.
And they wounded a Canadian MP.
Right.
He had to have his leg removed. And they were bombing mailboxes, and they were completely getting out of hand in English Canada. So Pierre Trudeau brought that in against invasion.
Right.
And it worked because there were no more bombing of mailboxes. They lost the election, and that was the end of them.
And it's all gone away now, hasn't it?
It all went away a week after he did it. Now, if you want to read about the actual proceedings that he went about, it's on Google under the War Measures Act Canada, and they did actually during World War One bring them in, but this one is particularly interesting because it's against invasion, which in fact we are being put through here.
Yeah.
And it's like living through things twice.
Well, it does feel like it, doesn't it? Because you got I read a statistic the other week where it said that the Normans managed to come to Britain, invade it and conquer it with about 6,000 soldiers.
Yeah, well, it looks as if it couldn't ever happen, but don't believe it. And they were making the Montrealers, who I was one of them, made us very fearful of walking or posting a letter or anything.
Right.
And so Pierre Trudeau, I didn't support him, but I did admire his guts.
Yes.
He came out and he said, I've tried everything. We're going to go for he went to the Premier of Quebec, who was desperate, and he said, I'm bringing in the War Measures Act. We're going to get rid of this. And within a matter of days, I flew back from here. I was on a visit when it all happened, and I saw the tanks.
Yes.
And I got back, and it was all over, and we never heard a miff out of them after that. They could see that Pierre Trudeau meant business. And I mean, that's what's got to happen here, Mike.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Helen, listen, thanks for your call. Interesting story that about the separatists in Quebec, because it was a big deal back in the 1970s. The Quebec Libre, as they called themselves, were quite a force, and they had rather a militant arm of their organisation as well, which was very, very awful, which the Canadians seemingly managed to do away with, and do away with properly as well. I think we've got John
Oh, I don't understand. Help me understand how she has made this connection. And of course, Captain Concrete here should be asking how these situations are remotely comparable, but it's easier to just nod his big dopey head, I guess. Helen said it's like she is living through it all over again. I mean, how? How many postbox bombs have we had recently? Look, I know it's pointless trying to apply logic to any of this, but let's try anyway. I think the implication from Helen here is the people entering this country via small boats are behind the scenes organising and plotting attacks in a similar manner to those conducted by the FLQ against civilians of Quebec. So our government should, I don't know, I guess preempt these attacks by presumably implementing the Emergency Powers Act of 1964. If Helen is so convinced this is an invasion, I can only conclude this is what she would like to happen. Presumably this would lead to the increase in the powers of our police and armed forces to arrest and detain anybody they deem a threat to commit any of the imaginary terrorist offences that haven't happened yet in Helen's mind. She also seems to be forgetting about the existence of our intelligence services, who are pretty effective at detecting underlying organisation by terrorists. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at here is Helen sounds like your classic fascist who wishes our authorities would target people who look a certain way because they may one day commit an offence of terrorism. I think. It's just an unbelievably absurd, offensive, racist, and downright fascist point of view that the useless slug Mike Graham naturally allowed to go unchallenged. Even if we do take the attitude we don't know who these people are or what they are capable of, which, by the way, is a silly and paranoid way to live your life, you simply have to trust our intelligence services to do their job rather than advocating handing extreme power to authorities and wishing they have a guilty until proven innocent attitude about them. Oh dear, I despair. This was an absolutely this is a brain melter of a phone call. Well worth sharing, I feel. Anyway, I just want to say thank you for watching and thank you for all the comments. And never, please, never hesitate to challenge or correct anything you may disagree with in anything I say in the comments section. Alright, yeah, thanks again for watching, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.